So I would like to call to order this March 1st, 2022 meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Greater Dayton Regional Transit Authority. This meeting is being conducted remotely on the Zoom video conference platform pursuant to Substitute House Bill 51, recently signed into law by Governor DeWine. I ask that all persons remain on mute unless called upon to speak. I will now ask, and you can do this from your seats, to please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will the secretary please call the roll, and board members please unmute when you are called upon.
Yes, sir. Mr. Williamson?
Present.
Mr. Lumpkin?
Present.
Mr. Corrado? Mr. Fullenkamp?
Present.
Ms. Hairston?
Present.
Ms. Hurd?
Present.
Ms. Howard?
Present.
Ms. Matthew Stinson?
Present.
And Mr. Weckesser?
Here.
We have 8 of 9.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The roll having been called, the chair declares that a quorum is present. The bylaws of the Greater Dayton Regional Transit Authority require that prior to a meeting of the Board of Trustees, the board approve the agenda for that meeting. Prior to today's meeting, a copy of today's meeting agenda was provided to all board members for review. Are there any requested changes or corrections to the agenda or objections to its approval? Hearing none, the chair will declare the agenda approved as presented. Also, prior to today's meeting, the minutes of the December 7, 2021 board meeting were provided to all board members for review. Does any board member request a reading of the minutes or have any requested changes or corrections to the minutes or objections to their approval? Hearing none, the chair will declare the minutes of the December 7, 2021 board meeting approved as presented. That brings us next on our agenda to our committee reports. And the first up is the Finance Personnel Committee. Ms. Matthew Stinson.
Good afternoon, everyone. The Finance, Personnel, and Planning Committees held a meeting on February 15th as a result of the Finance Personnel Committee is recommending 3 action items for the board's consideration. Action item number 2, radio user fees. This request relates to the payment of monthly radio charges to the Department of Administrative Services for the state of Ohio. This service is necessary for Greater Dayton RTA's fleet to have radio services while operating the buses. The service ensures radio communication between dispatch, operators, supervisors, and staff. This procurement is sole source, and RTA must pay monthly service to be included in the Ohio Marks 825 800 megahertz digital system. The system is the federal standard that allows interoperability between federal, state, and local public agencies so they may communicate in emergency situations. Radio user fees support RTA's core value of safety for our customers. This procurement will be funded with operating funds. Mr. Brown presented this action item at our meeting, and the supporting information is included in today's board package. Staff is available to answer any questions the board may have at this time. Hearing no questions, based upon the recommendation of the Finance Personnel Committee, I move that the Board of Trustees approve a contract award to the Department of Administrative Services for the State of Ohio for radio user fees for a total of up to $71,700 for a 6-month period from January through June 2022, plus an estimated $143,400 for 2022 through 2023, and $172,080 for 2023 through 2024, for an estimated grand total of $387,180. Actual costs may vary based on the number of radios covered.
This is Adrian. I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
This
Motion
is
made.
Sharon Hairston. Oh, that was a second. I'm sorry.
That was the second. If you'd
Okay,
like to add in a third, Sharon, that'd be okay. So,
not this time.
motion properly made by Ms. Matthews Stenson and seconded by Ms. Hurd. Is there any further questions, comments, or discussion from the board? Hearing none, I will ask the secretary to call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin,
Yes.
Mr. Follenkamp,
Yes.
Ms. Hairston,
Yes,
Ms. Hurd,
Yes.
Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Ms. Matthews Stenson,
Yes.
and Mr. Weckesser.
Yes.
We have 8 yeses.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The roll having been called, the motion passes and the action item is adopted.
Action item number 3, Fall Protection System Project. The purpose of this procurement is to purchase fall protection systems. The fall protection system is a mounted monorail-like rigid rail system that utilizes the roofing structure and the maintenance areas based on previously approved engineering design of RTA buildings. There will be 18 rigid rail systems installed in the 600 Longworth building and 4 in the 601 Longworth building, for a total of 22 systems. 39 trolleys that correspond with the rigid track PPEs, consisting of 43 self-retracting lifelines and 24 harnesses. This project is consistent with RTA's core value of safety as we continuously work to maintain our fleet and the safety of our team. This procurement will be partially funded through federal grant funds. Mr. Brown presented this item at our meeting, and the supporting documents are included in today's board pack. Staff is available to answer any questions the board may have at this time. Hearing no questions, Mr. Chair, based upon the recommendation of the Finance Personnel Committee, I move that the Board of Trustees approve a contract award to Safeguard US Inc., doing business as Safeguard Industries, in the amount of $460,050 for the purchase and installation of fall protection systems and personal protective equipment. This project will include a contingency amount of $40,000 to address any necessary changes to the final build design, and up to $116,528 for expanding the rails and training, for a total contract award of $616,578.
Motion's been properly made. Do I have a second?
This is Sharon Howard. I'll second.
Motion made by Ms. Matthews Stenson, seconded by Ms. Howard. Is there any further questions or comments or discussion from the board? Hearing none, I will call the vote and ask the secretary to call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin,
Yes.
Mr. Fullenkamp,
Yes.
Ms. Hairston,
Yes.
Ms. Hurd,
Yes.
Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Ms. Matthews Stinson,
Yes.
and Mr. Weckesser.
Yes.
We have 8 yeses.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The roll having been called, and the motion hereby passes, and the action item number 3 is adopted. Thank you.
Action item number 4, HVAC modifications, phase 1 and 2, 601 Longworth Street. The purpose of this procurement is to contract with a qualified contractor to perform the phase 1 and 2 work on Greater Dayton RTA's 601 Longworth Street HVAC system. The work generally consists of selective demolition of sections of a radiant tube heater system and relocation of round metal ductwork in phase 1. Phase 2 work consists of replacement of existing rooftop makeup air units, a new mini split, and a building control system. The project is part of a campus-wide HVAC upgrade. It will also include a single building automation system to control HVAC at all facilities. The 601 Longworth building is the first part of the master plan. This project demonstrates our core value of safety as we continuously work to improve our facility. This procurement will be partially funded through federal grant funds. Mr. Rudzinski presented this item at our meeting, and he's available to answer any questions the board may have at this time. Hearing no questions, based upon the recommendation of the Finance Personnel Committee, I move that the Board of Trustees approve a contract award to RTA Construction, Inc. for the total cost of the project in the amount of $921,926 plus a 15% contingency in the amount of $138,289 for unforeseen conditions for a grand total award of $1,060,215.
Is there a second?
This is John
This
Lumpkin.
is
I'll
Sharon
second that.
Hairston. I second.
John, you got there first, but Sharon was the loudest. So motion properly made by Ms. Matthews Stenson, seconded by Ms. Hairston. Is there any further questions or comments or discussion from the board on the action item? Hearing none, I will call the vote and ask the secretary to call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin,
Yes.
Mr. Fullenkamp,
Yes.
Ms. Hairston,
Yes.
Ms. Hurd,
Yes.
Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Ms. Matthews Stinson,
Yes.
and Mr. Weckesser.
Yes.
Thank you. We have 8 yeses.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The roll having been called, the motion passes and the action item is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of other items to mention. At our meeting, Mr. Stanforth reported January 2022 expense categories are all under budget as we are operating at much reduced service level. RTA is not able to provide normal weekday service with the current number of operator vacancies. Staff's focus is to get back to normal service levels as soon as possible. Total revenues are $1.1 million under budget due to lower assistance from state and federal governments. Total expenses are $1.6 million lower than budget. Employee wages and fringe benefits, contract services, and materials and supplies were the major contributors. RTA's service gain after deducting the local capital charge is $82,000. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Matthew Stenson. That takes us then to the Planning Committee report. Ms. Howard.
Yes, good afternoon. The Finance, Personnel, and Planning Committees met for a jointly held meeting on February 15th, and as a result, the Planning Committee is recommending one action item for the board's consideration. Action item number 5, Remix Transit Planning Software Service. Mr. Brandon Polachicchio explained that the purpose of this procurement is to award a sole source contract to Remix Software to provide cloud-based transit planning software services for a 3-year, 3-month period. Since acquiring Remix in 2017, it has enhanced results and reduced contract service costs associated with RTA's transit system redesign project and multiple Title VI analysis. By utilizing the Remix platform, RTA is able to apply best practices within Remix's planning and service development functions. Today, we are recommending a contract award to Remix Software Incorporated for $42,900 per year for a 3-year, 3-month total of $139,425. Mr. Polachicchio provided a detailed presentation at our committee meeting, and the supporting information is included in today's board package. He is also available to answer any questions at this time if anyone has any. Hearing none and based upon the recommendation of the Planning Committee, I move to award a contract to Remix Software Incorporated for a not to exceed amount of $42,900 per year for a 3-year, 3-month grand total of $139,425. This procurement is part of the operating budget.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion properly made by Ms. Howard, seconded by Mr. Weckeser. Is there any further questions or comments or discussion among the board about this action item? Hearing none, I will call for the vote and ask the secretary to call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin,
Yes.
Mr. Fullenkamp,
Yes.
Ms. Hairston,
Yes.
Ms. Hurd,
Yes.
Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Ms. Matthew Stenson,
Yes.
and Mr. Weckeser.
Yes.
We have 8 yeses. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The motion having been properly made, seconded, and a vote having been made, the motion carries and the action item is approved.
Thank you. Other items of discussion at the committee meeting included Mr. Polachicchio providing a summary document of recent activities in the Customer and Business Development Department. In addition, he shared information on an upcoming benefit program to TAP-pay customers. RTA's Service Guarantee Program will provide registered customers the ability to receive a credit to their accounts in the event our services did not run. The goal is to further develop this feature to include in a rewards program. This concludes my update, and I'm available to answer any questions anyone might have.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. Next on the agenda is Chief Executive Officer's report. Bob?
Yep, I just want to report that today we held our first joint session with the union on opening up the contract negotiations. The union presented their proposal to us. We presented our proposal to them. It was very cordial. The proposals are, as expected, quite far apart. There were no confidentiality agreements signed, or that was not even discussed. And in fact, after the meeting, the union president was seen passing out copies to his members and leaving them on tables in the facility. So I feel it's appropriate that I can share a couple highlights on their proposal. The requested wages were 2 to 3 times more than the public sector average for our region in each of the years. There were several items that were requested that would directly benefit the ATU leadership members, which we found quite interesting. and they propose nothing to address absenteeism. In fact, many of the things they propose could make it very worse. They brought in a national rep who made a comment upon leaving the meeting that our proposal would mean that we'll be in negotiations for a year and a half. I don't know what any of this means going forward, but I'm sure there's some posturing going on. Our next sessions are scheduled for the 16th and 17th, and I assume at some point we will have an executive session to discuss in details. But those are some of the highlights, and that's all I have to report.
Okay. Those next meetings will come immediately after our next set of committee meetings. I think we're scheduled to meet the 15th.
That is correct.
So just a heads up, if there's anything to address in executive session prior to those meetings, then we can do it perhaps after those committee meetings on the 15th.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Next up is old business. Do we have old business to bring before the board?
I do, Dave. I'd like to address the public comments from the December 7th, 2021 board meeting.
Thank you.
5 citizens shared public comments with us. 3 of them spoke on the loss of Route 64, 65, and 66. I would like to respond to that by simply saying RTA has had to make difficult decisions on service adjustments due to COVID and the ongoing lack of CDL drivers and CDL applicants. This situation is not likely to change anytime soon. RTA did work to line up funds for door-to-door trips that will take seniors and disabled riders to medical and other life essential appointments, including grocery shopping, on our smaller buses that do not require a CDL driver. We are announcing that starting in April, we will allow 2 riders taking the same trip to ride for the price of 1 on this service, and we'll be releasing details soon. And we had talked about that last fall when we kicked off this service. 1 public comment spoke on the topic of old project mobility tickets, and I would like to respond simply by saying that all customers were given advance notice on the expiration of these tickets, and we offered up numerous tap pay incentives to encourage the switch to tap pay, which many people took advantage of. And finally, a customer spoke on customer service concerns on our fixed route buses. I'd like to respond by simply saying our training department is working on refresher customer service training, and we are working to hire drivers with a solid belief in customer service.
Thank you. And for the good of the order, let it be reflected that the board has asked the Chief Executive Officer to address these comments and give him the opportunity to consult with staff and then report back to the board during the old business portion of these meetings. So thank you, Bob. And you may see a similar procedure moving forward. Any other old business from the board? Hearing none, we'll move on to new business. And we do have 1 action item under new business, and I'll go back to Mr. Rosicki.
Yes, as discussed at the committee meeting, I had hoped to bring forth this new business item to allow us to get in the ordering queue for the replacement of our small transit buses. I fully expect that once the federal government passes an official budget, which they have not yet done, it's been kicked down the road yet again. But once they do and FTA starts releasing grant funds, transit systems will be scrambling to get orders in on these buses. Typically, these buses were about a 90 to 60 day lead time, or I'm sorry, 90 to 66 month lead time. Currently, we're being quoted times as far out as over 2 years. And the madness hasn't even started yet on the ordering. So I did get this new business item out to everybody. It is to replace 75 of our small vehicles. That is our entire small vehicle fleet. We last replaced those in 16 and 17, and they have a 5-year useful life. Back then, the average price was in the $80,000 range, mid-80s, and we had budgeted $95,000 for them in our different grant applications. We did receive 3 competitive grant awards to replace these vehicles at an average unit price of $95,000, but currently the pricing is up to $125,000. With the large amount of infrastructure money we are scheduled to be receiving, covering the price difference is not a problem. And we will just simply apply for formula funds to do that. So we are working through the ODOT contracts where ODOT pre-qualifies the vendors and makes sure they meet all FTA qualifications. And so I'm asking for authority to purchase up to 100 of these, 75 of them to replace the fleet and up to 25 if service needs and changings in how we provide services warrant. And why I'm doing that is because I think we're coming to the conclusion that we'll be doing more and more door-to-door services and perhaps less fixed route services in the future as the needs of our community change. So we want to be prepared. So we're asking for the price of those vehicles, 75 of them at $125,000 a piece, the contingency of 25 at $130 because they would be ordered later, for a total cost of $3.25 million for the contingency vehicles, $9.3 million, $9.4 million for the 75 vehicles, and a 10% contingency of $1.3 million for a total award of $13,887,500.
Okay. All right, thank you, Bob. So I will then be the board member to make the motion. And I move that the Board of Trustees approve a contract award to an authorized Ohio Department of Transportation vehicle contract vendor for 75 small transit buses at a cost of $125,000 each, not to exceed $9,375,000, with the option for up to 25 additional vehicles at $130,000 each, for a total cost of $3,250,000 plus a 10% contingency of $1,262,500 for a grand total authority of $13,887,500. I further move that the Chief Executive Officer be permitted to execute any and all contract documents and do all things necessary to complete this award. And just for information, the contract will be funded with 80 to 85% federal capital grant funds. Do I have a second?
This is Adrienne Hurd. I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further question, comment, or discussion among the board? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote and ask the secretary to call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin,
Yes.
Mr. Fullenkamp,
Yes.
Ms. Hairston,
Yes.
Ms. Hurd,
Yes.
and Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Ms. Matthew Stinson,
Yes.
and Mr. Weckesser.
Yes.
Thank you. We have 8 yeses.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The motion having been properly made and seconded and the vote having been taken, the motion carries. The action item is approved. Any further new business to come before the board? Hearing none, the next item on the agenda is public comment. I'll ask the secretary, do we have anyone who has signed up for public comment today?
Sir, I am not aware of any signed up to speak today.
Very good. Next up then are any board member comments or announcements? Anyone? Seeing a lot of heads shaking from right to left as opposed to up and down. So I will take that as there are no board comments or announcements this month. I do want to make one clarification that the law that the governor just signed to again allow again for these remote meetings sunsets June 30. So be prepared for us to continue the remote meetings going forward no later than the 1st of July. But we'll just continue to see how it goes and while we have this option to take advantage of it. There is no request for executive session, as we've already heard from Mr. Rosinski. So I believe that I would simply ask everyone, is there any more business to come before the board? Hearing none, is there any objection to the adjournment of this meeting? Hearing none, the chair will declare, after I mention this, the next joint committee meeting is March 15, and the next board meeting is April 5. With that said, the chair will declare this meeting adjourned and wish you all a pleasant remainder of your day. Thank you.